Hi everyone, welcome to the last video of Letting Go Like Jesus, a YouTube retreat. Once again, I'm L.J. Malone, the Director of Faith Formation at St. John the Baptist Catholic Church in Silver Spring, Maryland. And today's video is the conclusion to identifying with Christ crucified. And so we begin with a story. A spiritual master claimed that it made no sense to define oneself as American or Chinese or Indian or African, or even as a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian. For these, he said, are merely labels. So one disciple who was Catholic first and foremost and always said, well, if I'm not Catholic, what else am I? And the spiritual master replied, well, it's your conditioning that's Catholic. And so the Catholic responded, well, then really, what is my identity? And the spiritual master replied, nothing. To which the Catholic retorted, you mean I'm an emptiness and a void? And the spiritual master replied, you are nothing that can be labeled. We put all of our emphasis on our identity as a label. We find who we are in our labels, whether our ethnicity, our nationality, our religion, our political party. But when we identify with Christ crucified, as we'll see in our formulas, we discover who we really are. And so let's look at our first formula. It's from the Gospel of John. Jesus says, when you lift up the Son of Man, you will realize, I am. Those last two words, I am, they're in capital letters. I, capital A, capital M. I am. And they represent the divine name, the name God revealed to Moses in the burning bush. Moses said to God, who are you? What's your name? And God said, I am who I am. I just am. Through the cross, Jesus is saying, when he says, as you lift up the Son of Man, then you'll discover who I really am. You'll discover I am. Through the cross, the true identity of God and our true identity is revealed, is unveiled. And when we identify with that cross by letting go, we discover our little I am is connected to the big, the great, the divine I am. When we identify with Christ crucified, in other words, by letting go, by letting be, then we discover who we really are. Our second formula is from Paul's letter to the Galatians, and he says, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. The whole letter to the Galatians is about a wrestling match, kind of, between grace and the law. And the prime example of grace that Paul uses is Christ crucified. And he exhorts the Galatians to find their identity there, in Christ crucified, in the one who is both human and divine, in the one who is both suffering and yet transcending suffering. He's fully human. As he's going through the passion, Jesus is troubled. He's upset, but he surrenders. He says, not what I will, Father, but what you will. He lets go. So on one level, he's experiencing a new freedom. Throughout his life, Jesus lets go, and he knows peace and joy and gentleness and patience and kindness. When we let go, we will know those things too. We will know peace. We will know joy. We will be kind. We will have patience. But on another level, we will realize that who we really are is bound up with Christ crucified, who is both human, fully emotional and physical, and fully divine, both able to suffer and transcendent to suffering. And now our third formula comes to us from St. John of the Cross, who says, crucified inwardly and outwardly with Christ, you will live in this life with fullness and satisfaction of soul. St. John of the Cross is saying that when we let go, when we die to ourselves and our selfishness, we will live full lives. And not just that we let go within, we let go of our attachments, those things that we think we need to be happy, that letting go has to be reflected in our outer physical lives with a life of simplicity, a life of kindness, a life where we are devoted to God and one another in our physical everyday actions. When we live like that, we will know fullness. We will know satisfaction of soul. That might be his code word for you will know who you really are. And in fact, St. John of the Cross says, when you know who you really are, you will know that at bottom you are one with God and that you are divine. St. John of the Cross says, God, being God by nature, wants to make us God by participation, just as fire turns everything into fire. Fire is a favorite image of the mystics to describe transformation, and the kind of transformation that happens when we let go. When we die with Christ, when we're crucified with Christ, we will know resurrection. We will know transcendent peace, unspeakable joy, the life of God. That's what John of the Cross is saying. When we fully let go, inwardly, outwardly, throughout our lives, we're letting go, we're letting be, God will divinize us. God will bring us into the divine life. God will share what it is to be God with us. A magnificent and infinite kind of promise. But it's right there in the story of Jesus. When Jesus dies on the cross in the Gospel of John, he says, "It is finished." It's a way maybe to see Jesus as detached from his own death. That even at that point, he lets go. And what immediately happens? Resurrection. Yes, it happens 3 days later, but a resurrection always follows death. New freedom, new peace, transcendent joy, it always follows letting go. So what does this mean for our practice of letting go? How might we summarize it at the end of all these videos? We can look at letting go real simply. Let go and let be. Let go and know joy. Let go and let God divinize you. But we might summarize it in 3 ways. Letting go involves a pure intention, an intention for God alone. In other words, that no matter what you do, whether you're washing the dishes or going to communion, you're doing it out of love for God. Second, there's an element of presence in letting go, an element of accepting the now, of being fully here, fully now in this present moment, and accepting whatever the content of the present moment is. So presence. Intention first, second, presence, and third, there's always an element of interior nothingness or interior silence, a full letting go, a full death to self, a death to what we want, what we think is best, and an interior kind of void. Think of the story that we began with. The Catholic asks the spiritual master, well then what is my identity? And the master replies, nothing. Who we are is bound up with the mystery of God, who's not a thing, who many of the mystics say is transcendent nothingness. Not that God isn't real, but that God is beyond all things, beyond even existence itself. So letting go involves a pure intention for God alone, presence in the moment, being in the now and accepting what's in the now, and a sinking into nothingness, an interior nothingness, an interior silence in which we're detached and not paying attention to and not involved with our own thoughts and our own feelings. So that's a good way to summarize our practice of letting go. And now we might look back at our formulas and then summarize their main points. So our formulas again are, first, Jesus says, when you lift up the Son of Man, you will realize I am. Second, Paul says, I live now, not I. Christ lives in me. And third, St. John of the Cross says, crucified inwardly and outwardly with Christ, you will live in this life with fullness and satisfaction of soul. Our main points might be summarized in this way. First, that through the cross we'll discover who we really are, that our I am is connected to the great I am. Second, that when we let go, we realize who we are is bound up with Christ crucified, who is human and divine, who is suffering and yet above all suffering. And third, we might say that when we let go, God will change us. God will transform us and bring us into the divine life. I hope you've enjoyed all these videos. I hope you're able to put this wisdom on letting go into practice in your own life. And as always, please comment below. Please share with your friends. Please like this video. And look for any further videos I might do in the future. I'm not sure when yet, but I do know I will do some videos in the future. And please enjoy this wisdom on letting go. Put it into practice. And I promise you, you will know joy, freedom, and peace. God bless.